Good morning, gang. Happy Tuesday. Okay, today is the second entry I get to put into the Preparedness Month Collaboration. So, thank you to Prepper Potpourri and Sutton's Days for putting this on. So what I want to talk about today is getting your garden ready for next year. This is actually probably the most important time of the year to do your gardening, because the most important thing you're going to grow is your soil, because without your soil you aren't going to have anything. So what I kind of want to do is show you what to do, what I do, let's put it that way. There's other people that do different things, but give you a very inexpensive way of doing this. So I'm assuming that most of your gardens probably look something like this now. The tomatoes, if they're still alive where you are on their last legs, they've got maybe something going on, peppers, for some goofy reason, still enjoying this even though we're having cold weather, but tomatoes are kind of wearing down. So what we want to do is turn this into a garden that's going to be ready to plant next year. Now, I'm kind of doing this a little different than I usually do it. Usually I'll get one garden all the way to finished before I start the next one. But in order to make the video, I figured it was easier if I did each one in steps. So this is the second garden, and this is where I have cleaned up everything, taken out all the plants. Obviously, I still have some cauliflower, some celery's growing, tomatoes here too, and then my Brussels sprouts are still doing well, but those are cool weather crops. But I wanted to show you like this area in the center here, and you can see what I've done is pulled everything, gone through with the weed whacker or whippersnipper for those of you guys in Australia, and just basically cut everything down all the way to ground level, or as close as I could, just to kind of kill it all off. And of course, when I do this, then the birds have a field day coming in through picking up if there's any seed or bugs or anything like that. But that's fine. So we'll move on and I'll show you what next step is. So now I'm up in the back corner of the yard here. And you've all heard me talk about the great benefits of composting. All right. So this is my 2023 compost pile. This is all the stuff that I've been pulling out of the gardens this year. Tomato plants. I mean, if you look in here, you can see there's actually a couple of green tomatoes in there. But this is weeds, this is tomato plants, this is just, anything that I've been able to pull out so far. Okay. And that's basically what you want. All right. And I'm going to keep dumping on here. I'll get it wet. I'll turn it, because eventually what happens next year is that's what I get from it. Okay. And you see some mostly completed compost. Okay. What I just showed you in the green pile is what this is from last year. So that is the first step to getting our gardens ready for next year. And we move on. So now I'm going to move into this garden. Okay. And this garden is already been all the weeds pulled. The weeds have been weed whacked down. Some of them are trying to grow back a little bit or whatever it is. But the next step in here is to add all my compost. As you'll see up there, the dark dirt, that's just from my potted plants this year, my potted tomatoes. And okay, pull the tomatoes out, throw them in the compost pile, and all that goes into the garden. Okay, everybody says, oh, you can't use potted soil. Sure you can. All you got to do is revitalize it. And by everything I'm doing here, this is what you're going to wind up doing. So what I will do is take all that compost and it will get dumped into this garden, and that'll be the first step. So the first thing you're doing is taking compost and getting as much of it into your garden as you can, because you want that, and especially if it's not completed compost like what I've got over here, because that's going to give your worms and your beneficial insects and everything like that food over the winter. So that's one of the first things you're going to do, is you're going to dump all the compost in here along with extra dirt, potting soils or whatever you have, and that'll give you this step. So we move on again. Okay, so out to my last garden. And this is the one I'm furthest along in. So what we're looking at here is Now, after the garden is full of compost and whatever you're going to put in there, your horse manures, your cow manures, anything that's composted, your green compost, whatever it would be. This is where I do things different than other people. A lot of people will like to plant a cover crop, and it definitely works, trust me, okay? You can plant buckwheat, you can plant clover, whatever it would be, and it'll do a great job for getting you that biomass that you need in the spring, because all you got to do then is go in, mow it down, till it in, and kill it. And you'll have all the biomass that you need. I don't do that for a couple of reasons. I just find, first off, it's gardens. If you got a farm, yeah, I can see doing that. It's a lot easier to plant acres and acres and acres with a tractor than it is for a garden. Okay, but for me, I find it turns into extra work. Then and extra money. Then I've got to go out and I've got to buy the buckwheat, or I've got to buy the clover, and I've got to go through and seed it all, get it started, and all of a sudden I'm tending this garden in the winter. Okay. Then come springtime, I've got to mow everything here before I can till it all in, and it just creates extra work. So instead, and this is what I was talking about for those of you who saw the video the other day when I was talking about fertilizers, instead what I'll do is take grass clippings, and this year is about, this time of year, not this year, this time of year is the best time to get grass clippings. They are full of dead leaves. And so what you're doing is creating a compost pile in your garden. Okay? All this green waste that isn't going to be, the grass will compost very quickly, as opposed to like tomato plants and stuff. That'll take the year to, I don't work hard at my compost pile. You can do it faster, but I just let that go, water it in every once in a while, turn it every once in a while, and that's that. Grass clippings will compost very quickly. Y'all know the smell of, you bag your grass clippings and they sit out on the side of the house until trash day, and by the time you go out and get them, they stink like crazy. It's because they're composting. Grass clippings will compost real quick. Now, you get all that chopped up leaves in there with it that you're going to get this time of year, and now you've created the perfect balance of green material and brown material to compost in your garden, especially if you have snow, and all that snow is going to get on there and just keep it wet and moist and everything over the winter. So it saves me a ton of time, because now I don't have to go cut everything, do whatever, in the springtime. All I'm going to do in the springtime now is come and till all this under. Okay, and then I've mixed everything in, and I've accomplished the same thing without spending a whole lot of money and without having to spend a whole lot of time. If you don't have access to grass clippings, chop up your weeds, chop up whatever, run it, you're pulling weeds in the garden, throw it in the yard, whatever it is, run over it with a lawnmower a couple of times. As long as it didn't go to seed, you're good, okay? Now, the other thing I will do, and this is going to be controversial to people, if you all know what preen is, P-R-E-E-N, I put preen on my garden in the fall. The grass clippings, the leaves, everything like that will prevent leaves or weeds from germinating over the winter pretty well, but I can still see sitting here right now, I've got a couple that have popped through my grass clippings already. So again, I'm going to have to pull those out, and then I just put some preen on there to keep the weed, so I don't have the weed problem. Come springtime, then of course all I have to do with all of this is take the tiller over it, run the till in. I know a lot of you guys are no-till method, but this works too. If you don't want to till it in, you don't have to, okay? Where with the cover crops, you pretty much have to till it in. With the grass clippings and leaves and stuff like that, you don't. This will decompose enough that you can plant right into it in the spring. But then you will be able to get out here in the spring, put your ground cover in, or put, your I guess weed barrier, whatever you want to call it, ground cover, and be able to plant right into that, and you'll be all set, and you've built some good soil underneath. So it's not difficult, but use what's available to you. We've said many times on this channel about, what if the store doesn't exist? You know, what if we have to go back to like the 1800s and pioneers, how they grew stuff before they could go to Walmart and buy a bag of fertilizer? This is how you do it, okay? So get out there. There's a lot more to, do in the garden this year. It may not be the most fun part, but trust me, if you do all this, it's going to make your garden a hell of a lot more productive next year. And after all, it's what we're all trying to do. Have a wonderful Tuesday, guys. We'll see y'all later. Pinball out.